at that. They actually awarded some of the major awards that we've been looking forward to. So congratulations to the two Rookie of the Year winners. Plus, we're going to talk about some cities that could host some Major League Baseball games.
You are Locked On MLB, your daily MLB podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello, baseball fans. Welcome to Locked On MLB, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, where it's your team every day. This is the daily podcast. We talk about all of Major League Baseball. I am your host, Paul Francis Sullivan. Please call me Sully. I've been a baseball podcaster for quite a while now, and I'm wrapping up my sixth full season, and I'm going to begin my seventh season here as a host on the Locked On Podcast Network. Follow us at Locked On MLB Pods on Twitter or on Instagram. I'm your pal Sully. I'm at Sully Baseball on Twitter, Sully Baseball Podcast on Instagram. And today's episode is brought to you by our good friends. Wait, who the hell is it? My goodness, I just closed the window that told me who the podcast is being sponsored by. And my goodness, am I being professional about this? Today's episode is indeed brought to you by our good friends at, drumroll please, Game Time. It was either Game Time or FanDuel. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off your first purchase. Wow, today's off to a good start. But we got some people here in the live chat, and we're here talking about the Rookie of the Year vote. And the Rookie of the Year of the National League Rookie of the Year, Paul Skenes is the Rookie of the Year. And Luis Gil is the Rookie of the Year in the American League. And so we see the results are in, and the Paul Skenes got 23 out of 30 first place votes. Jackson Merrill got 7, and they got all the first and second place votes. Everyone who voted for Merrill to be first place voted Skenes to be in second place, and vice versa. Jackson Chourio of Milwaukee got 26 third place votes, and Imanaga of the Cubs got 4 third place votes. So Skenes, Merrill, Chourio go 1, 2, 3. Imanaga placed 4th. Now, the AL vote was a little more interesting. 4 players got at least 1 vote for first place in the American League Rookie of the Year. Luis Gil got 15 votes. Colton Cowser got 13. That's pretty airtight. Gil got 106 total points. Cowser got 101. Again, that is a razor thin. That is wafer thin, to paraphrase Monty Python and the meaning of life. Austin Wells came in third place. He received no first place votes, 3 second place votes, and 3 third place votes. So the total points dropped off. Luis Gil had 106 points, Colton Cowser 101. Then it dropped off to 17. Here's what I find fascinating. Mason Miller got a first place vote. If I were a voter, he would have 2 first place votes because he was my pick to be the Rookie of the Year, and he finished in 4th. He got 1 first place vote, 2 second, and 3 in third, which means I got upset when he was not a finalist, not in the top 3. He was 1 behind Austin Wells. So if one of the third place votes sat out, or if flipped and flopped or something like that, Miller would have been one of the top 3. Cade Smith of the Guardians finished in 5th place. He also got a first. Someone gave Cade Smith the first place vote. Wilyer Abreu of the Red Sox and Wyatt Langford of the Rangers. A bunch of good rookies this year in the American League. But there you go. Gil and Skenes got won the Rookie of the Year. It's interesting. Skenes is a number 1 overall pick who won the Rookie of the Year. That doesn't always happen. And this is the first time that since 1981 that both rookies of the year were starting pitchers. Now, I had to do a little bit of a double take because the National League Rookie of the Year in 1981 was the late Fernando Valenzuela, who won, that was Fernando Mania. He also won the Cy Young Award that year. The American Leaguer who won the Rookie of the Year in 1981 was Dave Righetti. And I did a little double take there because I so associate Dave Righetti with being a relief pitcher, which he was for a giant chunk of his career. And I forgot he was indeed a starting pitcher. In fact, famously, 2 years later, in 1983, threw a no hitter on the 4th of July against the Boston Red Sox. It's been quite a year for Skenes. He started the All-Star game. Not that that means much anymore, because that means you throw the first inning. Yes, Jeff Cohen. I know Dave Righetti threw no hitter. I just said it. Skenes had a 1.96 ERA. That ain't bad. And he had a terrific all-around year. And of course, Luis Gil. Again, I don't have a problem with Gil winning Rookie of the Year. He was in in my three that I had nominated, and he had, he pitched 151 and 2/3 innings, struck out 171 batters along the way. He gave the Yankees 29 starts. He won 15 games. I don't really care that much about win-loss records, but there you have it. The thing that he gave the Yankees, for at least for the first half of the season, was a real sense of stability for a rotation that was uh, that for a stretch in the middle part of the year. Remember, the middle part of the year, the Yankees were dreadful, and the fact that they had Rodon and Gil pitching well, especially the first half of the year, that was that was a quality thing to happen for the Yankees. The Yankees between June and August were thoroughly mediocre. They're 14-13 in June, 11-13 in July, 14-12 in August. So they went to for basically half the season being a mediocre team, and having Gil pitch really, really well, especially in the first half of the year, put them in a position where, the Yankees won the division, and they won, they had the best record in the American League, which was something that they really, really needed. The first half of the season, Gil was an all-star caliber pitcher, gave him 19 starts and pitched very well. He regressed a little in the second half, but again, that's what the Yankees needed. Now, I still would give it to Mason Miller based on what he did with the A's and the fact he was one of the few difference-making relievers in the game. And I also think that Colton Cowser was, gave the Baltimore Orioles, a lot of production out of left field. He had some good power, good all-around play. I do have problems with Austin Wells being ahead of Mason Miller. I just do. I mean, I look at Austin Wells' season. He was again. I'm not saying the man was bad. He was an automatic out the second half of the season. I mean, that's just a fact. The second half of the year, he, was not productive in the slightest, and he had a very good August and nothing short of a grotesque September and October behind the plate. I guess handled the pitching staff as well as you could, and certainly led the league in quality mustaches. But I don't see how anyone puts him ahead of Mason Miller. So, but what they did, and there you go. So the snail's pace of which we are seeing the awards being handed out will continue for, they should always hand that out when they have that award ceremony. What are you going to do? When we come back, I do want to talk about the Rays situation again and sort of realize that we're in an emergency situation. And sometimes in situation where everything goes wrong, you have to make decisions that are not best case scenario because we're not living in a best case scenario time. Hey, let's hear from our good friends over at Game Time. You all know I use Game Time to get playoff tickets for baseball. I got to see the Dodgers clinch the National League pennant in Los Angeles. However, you can use Game Time for lots of other things, including other sports, theater, comedy, concerts, and more. Game Time has a new feature called Game Time Picks that makes getting tickets to see your favorite teams play live even easier. Game Time Picks filters out the fluff to show you only incredible deals on great seats, so you don't have to waste time searching through thousands of tickets. Game Time has all sorts of perks. You've got all-in pricing, no surprise fees at checkout. You get seat views, get a panoramic view from your app before you buy, and you have the lowest price guaranteed, or Game Time will credit you 110% of the difference. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use the code LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem the code LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off. Download Game Time today. What time is it? It's game time. You know, I've made it very clear on this podcast and when I was the replacement podcast host for Locked On A's, rooted in Oakland. I've made it very clear that I am not for the movings of the relocation of franchises. I'm against it. And fortunately, because of the way baseball has been set up, it is very hard to move a franchise. I've made this point before. I was born in 1972. In my lifetime, well, I'm going to cheat a little bit here because I say in my lifetime, the Senators moved to Texas before I was born, but it was the year I was born. So it's from the year I was born, we've had two franchise moves, two. Football teams move left and right, basketball teams move left and right, hockey teams move left and right, but it's very hard for baseball teams to move. I made this point the other day, and I think that's good for baseball that we have teams in Minnesota, Seattle, San Francisco, Texas, Pittsburgh, all cities, Cleveland, all cities that had their teams threatened to be taken away from them. That being said, the situation that Tampa Bay is in is so dire, and the ramifications of it are so destructive to the game moving forward that you kind of have to say this is the scenario where I'm not saying I would want to have a franchise move, but it might have to happen. I want baseball to succeed in Central Florida. I think the fans in Florida are remarkable fans. I didn't say they were the most plentiful fans, but the fans who show up to the Rays, and the fans who show, and especially fans who show up to Marlins games, are some of the best fans in baseball. Because I can't bring them up here without someone snickering, hey, they don't even exist. Are there even fans there? Imagine being a fan base where no one even acknowledges your existence. Imagine being a Marlins fan where every single time they put a good team on the field, they're going to immediately break it up. They did so in 97. They did so in 03. They did so when they tried to put something together in 12. And just when they went to the playoffs in 2023. Remember that? It was an innocent time way back in 2023. And already that team is completely dismantled. It could even last a year. And if you still show up to that damn team with the way that they've treated their fans, you don't have to show your loyalty in any other way. But sometimes there is a situation where you're like, wow, this could be no win. Because, yeah, they could play in Steinbrenner Field for a year. Can they, though? An 11,000 seat stadium that doesn't have a roof? They're going to be playing games in Florida in the rain and in the heat? You're really going to pull that? You're going to try to pull that off in a tiny capacity? But even in the short term is nerve-wracking. The long term is disastrous. If they don't get funding for this new stadium, which, by the way, doesn't look good, as they've waited and delayed it too long, the people in charge there are now against it. If they don't get the funding for that to build a new stadium in St. Petersburg, then there'll be no new stadium in St. Petersburg. And believe me, I lived in the Bay Area long enough to see lots of really pretty renderings for stadiums. In the 80s, stadiums for the Giants, and the 90s, 2000, 2010 to 2020, all beautiful renderings for stadiums for the A's to move to. But until a shovel goes into the ground, it's just a doodle on a menu. And these doodles on the menu of a new ballpark in San Antonio, in St. Petersburg, are very pretty and very nice, but are basically wipe your nose with them at this point, because if they don't get the funding, that stadium's not being built. And they'll find other ways to use that land and use that property. It would probably be more profitable than if you put a ballpark there. But what will happen then? You're not going to have contraction, but you also can't have a team play in minor league ballparks in perpetuity. And this is not the same situation as the A's. The A's, this is a self-inflicted wound. This is the stupidity, the greed, the dishonesty, and the treachery of John Fisher, who is, this is not an opinion, this is a fact, a horrible human being who lied his way out of this and put himself in a situation where he's now playing in Sacramento. This is not a self-inflicted wound. The Rays have been making honest attempts to stay in Central Florida. The Rays ownership have been trying to fix what's happening. Granted, they're not fixing the main issue, is the teams in St. Petersburg, but they have, by all accounts, been making honest efforts to put a quality product on the field. Remember, go all the way back to 2023, they were hosting playoff games. They had a 100-win season in 2021, went to the World Series in the COVID year, was a playoff team each of the 2 years before that, or the year before, 2019, not the 2 years, I'm sorry. But you understand what I'm saying. There's a team that is consistently putting at least a decent product on the field, if not a pennant winner, which they've done a couple of times, and trying to put a pennant winner on the field and build a new ballpark. But a Venn diagram of nature, of geography, of climate change, and everything hit with the Hurricane Milton. And it has put them in a situation where they may not be able to find a to find a place to play now. But if they don't have funding, are they going to go back to the Trump, which has been destroyed? This is a situation where you're like, do you know what? This might be that Venn diagram of you may have to move them, because baseball can't have a team playing in a minor league ballpark for a bunch of years. Baseball's trying to expand, and you can't have them wandering the desert or wandering it's not the desert, but wandering Florida, wandering around the swamps of Florida like Swamp Thing, trying to find a place to play, trying to find money to build it. They may have to really seriously consider it an emergency situation, and I'll say it, for them to play in 2025. Now, one of the big problems I've said before is it's hard to do that because there aren't a lot of places that you could just start playing baseball. But do you know what? There are a few. And no, I'm not talking about Montreal. And yes, I am talking about having the Rays play somewhere else. And yes, I'm saying that maybe this can be their new home. Get ready to tackle the NFL action with FanDuel, America's #1 sports book. Because right now, new customers can bet $5 to get $150 back in bonus bets if you win. The FanDuel Sportsbook app gives you everything you need to place live bets and the NFL all in one place. So when you get a hunch in the middle of a game, you can check out the latest stats, view live play-by-play, and so much more on the same page where you place your bets. Just visit FanDuel.com to join today. You'll get started with $150 in bonus bets if you win your first $5 bet. That's FanDuel.com. Never waste a hunch and make every moment more with FanDuel, the official sportsbook partner of the NFL. Now, I've made this point before on Locked On A's when I was hosting Locked On A's. The point I made was New Orleans makes more sense for a team to move there than to Las Vegas. I don't want the A's to move. I still don't. I would love if they played in Oakland next year. I think I will believe Las Vegas when I see it. There've been heard enough lies from John Fisher and his crew that I'm pledging this amount of money. Yeah, wake me when you actually do it. But that's not what's going on here with the Tampa Bay Rays. Now, Jeff Cohen brings up, isn't Dale Murphy trying to bring baseball to Portland? There's the Portland Diamond Project. Here's a problem. Is there a place to play in Portland? Is there a place to play in Portland? Well, maybe, because the stadium where the soccer stadium where the Portland Timbers play, Providence Park, was one time the home of the great of several teams, including the Portland Mavericks. It was a baseball stadium, and it'll probably take a little bit to revert it back to being a baseball stadium. It's not ideal. I think Portland makes more sense than Las Vegas as a landing spot. But let's also take a look at the Louisiana Superdome. One of the reasons why they built the Superdome the way they did, they were trying to get a stadium for the New Orleans Saints, but they were also wanting to be a multi-purpose ballpark. And they tried to lure Cleveland there. They tried to lure an expansion team there. They tried to lure the A's there. Well, it's sitting there. Now, the irony of a hurricane emergency leading a team to the Louisiana Superdome is not lost on me. But they've hosted baseball games there. And they've hosted baseball games there this century. The Louisiana Superdome, or the Caesars, or whatever the hell it's called now, is a major, sporting facility in a major city that doesn't have a baseball team, that would have a capacity of 56,000 in their ballpark. Is it ideal? No. Would they eventually have to build a new stadium for them? Yes. Could they go in there next season, the New Orleans Rays, and play there? Yes. Actually, they can. They can actually do that. They could be playing in a stadium in a new city in 2025. Would it be ideal? Would it be rushed? Yes, it would be. But so is playing in Steinbrenner Field in perpetuity. I don't want a fan base to have a team ripped away from them. But this is a situation where the factors have to bring up emergency situations like this. Why couldn't they be the New Orleans Rays? Yes, the good folks of Tampa Bay would be heartbroken. I don't doubt that. I'm not dismissing that. But this isn't the Oakland situation. This is a different situation where there's no ballpark and there may not be one for 5-6 years, realistically. If they don't repair the Trop, then we'll be looking up, and it'll be the end of the Trump presidency, and the Rays could look up and go, "Holy crap, we're still playing in minor league parks," or we've settled in New Orleans, or they could settle in San Antonio. Lest we forget, San Antonio, the Alamo Dome, has hosted baseball games. It's not ideal. In 2012, they had Major League exhibition games there. It's not an ideal baseball facility, but San Antonio is a potentially large market, and baseball could thrive there, especially in an indoor place. And they could, again, play there in the 2025 season. And also, let's not discount Omaha. Omaha, yeah, Omaha. Not a huge market, but not a tiny one. Lots of corporate money there. And Charles Schwab Stadium is sitting there. Charles Schwab Stadium is where the College World Series plays. They have 24,000 seats there. It probably wouldn't take a whole hell of a lot to expand it to 30,000 seats. And they'd be the first major league team in Omaha. They don't have an NFL team. They don't have an NBA team. They don't have an NHL team. They briefly had an NBA team at one point when the Kings split between Kansas City and Omaha, but now they're playing in Sacramento, hoping to be best friends with the A's. Omaha would be on the major league map with a major league baseball team. This is not ideal, but look me in the eye and tell me that you know that this bond issue is going to pass. It doesn't look like it is. Now, this if it does get passed, then fine, build a new stadium in St. Petersburg. I think it's a dumb place to build a ballpark, but fine. Then you play in minor league stadiums for a couple of years and then move in there. It stinks, but there you go. But if it doesn't pass, are you going it's going to cost more than $56 million to repair the Trop. And the Trop is the very thing that has been the albatross for this franchise. The New Orleans Rays, the Omaha Rays, the San Antonio Rays, or call them by something new. I don't know. We get the marketers on this. It's something worth thinking about. And Rays fans, it's not something I'm taking lightly. I don't want you to lose a team. But Major League Baseball can't have a homeless team. And a homeless team that's nobody's fault. The A's is one person's fault. This is not. And they're not going to have a home. If the bond issue doesn't work, they'll have no home. And while the Alamo Dome or the Schwab Stadium in Omaha or the Louisiana Superdome are not ideal situations, they're a hell of a lot better than having a team play in Florida outdoors in a minor league stadium. And eventually, well, Tim Fritz says, will they consider building their new ballpark next to Raymond James Stadium? Sure, great, fantastic. Do you have the money for that? That's starting at square one. You don't have a design. You don't have investors. Yes, that'd be a great place. They actually should have made Raymond James Stadium a multi-purpose stadium. They should have done that, but you can't put the toothpaste back in the tube. Yeah, they should have built a stadium for the A's in the parking lot of the Oakland Coliseum or in that parcel of land near the train station in San Jose, nearby where the Sharks play. Or maybe build a stadium if they have to play in Sacramento, build a stadium right there in West Sacramento near where Sutter Health Park is. All of these are true. That's a great point, Tim, except one thing. Where's the money, the design, and the support behind it? You'd be starting from square one. If you say build it next to Raymond James Stadium, when's the soonest that opens up? 2030? So they're going to be playing minor league parks for the next 5 seasons? I'm not discounting what you're saying, Tim, but there are tiny details like money, designs. They can play in the Superdome next year. Is it ideal? No. Is it better than playing in a spring training park all year? Yes. I'm not saying, I'm just saying. Rays fans are probably going to come at me, and I understand. And some people are going to say I'm hypocritical because I was so vehemently against moving the A's, but this is not the same situation, folks. I want them to succeed. And if all this comes together, if they build a ballpark in Las Vegas, if the Rays settle somewhere else and they do that and it works out, then baseball can expand to 2 more teams. And then you can make the case for Rays 2.0. And if you don't believe me, if teams can return to a place where a previous team moved from, happened in Washington, D.C. I'm not saying, I'm just saying. We're going to hear more about awards coming up later. But let me know your thoughts. Will baseball award experience in Montreal and Salt Lake City? I don't think Montreal, as much as I would love it. Salt Lake City is making a hell of a pitch for it. The most obvious place to put a team is Nashville. But again, they don't have a stadium. When they built the stadium for the Titans, they should have built something that was multi-purpose. But they didn't. But they do in San Antonio, New Orleans, and in Omaha. So follow us at Locked On MLB Pods on Twitter and Instagram. I'm your pal Sully. I'm at Sully Baseball on Blue Sky, Sully Baseball Podcast on Instagram. Talking about the Rookie of the Year and consider New Orleans, San Antonio, or Omaha. This has been Locked On MLB. I am your host, Paul Francis Sullivan. Please call me Sully.